You're listening to Our Two Satoshis podcast with hosts Justin and Billy from CryptoBiz.com.
It's like the bull market has started with cryptocurrency, crossed over 7K in the Bitcoin world the other day, Billy, and we got a lot of news to cover on this podcast.
Yeah, man, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but it does feel like that. We'll see. I'm looking at the chart right now on CoinMarketCap, and it looks like we got some resistance at 8,000, which we were at about a month ago. So we can crack that. I think we're off to the races.
Well, if you look at just on 2 days ago, when the charts with Bitcoin, it's like just one green candle just vertically straight up.
Yeah.
It's
rocket ship.
And the talk is that some of that, that initial run started from the news that was released about Blackrock. This is kind of an article that you brought to my attention, but can you give us some details on the whole Blackrock and why that might have started this bull run?
Yeah, so I just want to highlight something before we dive into BlackRock, because right before this run, there's an article, I think it was from CNBC or something, and basically the title was Bitcoin and why it's not going to climb back up ever again according to 5 experts, and then half an hour later we get Bitcoin spikes 10%. All right, those experts to say.
Everybody's guessing. It's just a freaking guessing game.
It was just man, that's perfect. Okay, so back to BlackRock. So just for some backstory here, for anybody that's not aware, BlackRock is the world's largest money manager. So they've got 6.3 trillion in assets under management. Big player.
Huge player.
Yeah. So essentially what happened was the company came out and said that they were exploring, they had a group that was exploring the crypto space and blockchain infrastructure, while at the same time saying, their CEO, I don't believe that any client has sought out crypto exposure. So it's what are you trying to say here?
Wasn't so from the news that I read, they announced that they had that team that was researching it, but the team has actually been researching it for 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah,
and it was just kind of kept undercover. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're looking at it for a while. It reminds me of who was it a little while ago? Was it J.P. Morgan or one of those big financial institutions that publicly said, this is a bubble, blah, 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 but behind closed doors, they were actually buying it up.
That was J.P. Morgan because that was a few months ago where Jamie Dimon came out and said that it was a fraud. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, they had a trading desk or something,
exactly.
that they were setting up for it.
That's what this sounds like to me, but a much bigger player.
Yeah.
So, man, just imagine 1% of that. That's $60-some billion if they were to devote 1% of their portfolio.
Well, and it said that, so I'm pulling back the article now. Didn't it say that they were already, or no, this was Goldman Sachs, who's the next item that I want to talk about. It's not that they're letting people already trade crypto, but they're trading derivatives based on the market or something already. Actually, let's just kind of jump into that one right now, since it's kind of on the same topic here with Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs is they're having a new CEO take over in October, and this CEO is so his name is going to be David Solomon. He's currently with Goldman Sachs, just not. I think he's the COO currently, but he's going to be taking over in October, and he is very very interested in the crypto scene and bringing Bitcoin into their portfolio. Funny part is, I saw the great, awesome tweet about him. It said, I think it was from Pomp, who we've talked about before on Twitter, but he said that the new CEO of Goldman Sachs moonlights as an EDM DJ, and is really likes crypto. So it's a good thing for the market, and which he does. So he
It doesn't even
moonlights.
sound like real life. Like, yeah, right.
His DJ name is DJ D Soul. His name's David Solomon, so D Soul. But I expected, like, when I saw this to be like a young, like, 40-some-year-old or something like that taking over Goldman Sachs. No, this dude has, little to no hair, gray hair, dude.
It's like, dude, like this reminds me, like this sounds like it would be on Silicon Valley.
Oh, dude.
Like, this is such a satire.
This is like they couldn't even script this way. I'd love to see this dude at the club. And then it's just hilarious to me.
DJ Satoshi.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's so much good news coming out. It's
Oh.
nice to see, a conservative, financial institution get this new crypto-friendly CEO. It's
Hey,
makes
if
me
you
so
can't
happy.
beat them, if you can't beat them, join them.
That's the theme here.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the theme.
other news that was released this week along those same lines of large institutions is that MasterCard now has a patent that they're working on that would allow Bitcoin transactions on credit cards. So
Yeah, I saw
rather
that
than
headline, but I didn't actually, do a deep dive on it.
yeah, so Tom Lee on CNBC, who's like the biggest crypto bull on CNBC, he's the one that started really discussing this. And the problems that they currently foresee for it is that sometimes cryptocurrency transactions can take up to 10 minutes. So it's not as fast as what regular credit card transactions are. So they're basically stating that you have to at least trust that there's money in there for the transaction to process in a timely manner, or with their patent, they're looking at, based on a small credit of the cryptocurrency, basically approving the transaction, and then later the funds actually coming. So it's just interesting that, you've got these cryptocurrency cards out there like Monaco and Metal, and, there are a few others. I mean, those are just to name a couple of them. But now the big players are saying, hey, before they kind of take this market share, we're going to come in and start investing in this and looking at this as, a possibility. So I don't know. It's interesting.
It's smart. It's smart not to get eaten up,
Yep.
Because, I mean, there was a time when credit cards were the new scary thing. Like, plastic, for what? Cash is fine. It's always been cash. So it's cool to see that evolution, but also see them be smart enough to tie themselves to it, form more of a partnership than a war.
It's exciting. I'm going to be happy we talked about this on the last podcast when checks are gone. I mean, why do we need checks anymore?
I haven't written a check in like 10 years. Couldn't even work it.
I think I had to write one recently. It was for something having to do with my mortgage, but that was it.
Yeah, I got a bill in the mail, and I was like, one, why do I still get paper mail? And two, who's mailing in a check? This seems like it would take months to get there,
It's
horseback.
The Pony Express.
Yeah.
It's funny that you actually mentioned that because I've been thinking about that a lot. Like talking about companies and markets and government institutions that need to evolve. When is the Postal Service going to look into blockchain technology? I mean, maybe they already are, but like there has to be some blockchain solutions for the Postal Service. The U.S. Postal Service, obviously, is what I'm talking about here.
Right.
They're always losing money. Like, what can blockchain solve for them that can change the landscape so that they're not, so that they're actually profitable? I'd say profitable in a skewed way since it's a government institution. Although, just to be clear. And I know this from my father working for the post office for over 30 years. The Postal Service is one of the only government institutions that doesn't take money from the government. It's fully funded by itself.
Nice.
But yeah.
Well, I guess my question, because I don't know a lot about post office revenue, and maybe you do because you're dad, but what is their biggest inefficiency? Like, why do they lose money,
Yeah, I don't know that answer. I know that they partner with Amazon to actually deliver packages and stuff on Sundays, but apparently they're giving like Amazon it really cheap. So I don't know how much money they're actually making off of it. So no, I don't know what their inefficiency is. I mean, if you think about it, I do remember this one statistic is that the U.S. Postal Service delivers more mail in one day than UPS and FedEx deliver in a year combined. So now, granted, UPS and FedEx are delivering packages. Postal Service is also delivering letters and stuff like that. But
Right.
if you think about that, the amount of quantity that they have to put out, when some of these letters only are a couple cents or whatever, 30 cents. Other than if like your mom sending you a package like yours did the other day that put 42 stamps on it.
Yeah, she's paying rent. All right, we're still in business because of Lisa.
That was the funniest thing I ever saw.
So good. And it's still in the fridge.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
So my mom wanted to send me this piece of mail that went to her house. And, basically she took one of like those manila envelopes and stuffed it in there. And she ended up using, let's see, I can't, so where it is now. There was like 7 or 8 forever stamps on there. Like, she probably could have sent it with 2. The whole thing was stamps.
You should just pull a couple of them off and reuse them.
I know.
Nobody knows how much this costs.
Like, that's like the only reason why the post office is still in business, because people are like overspending. Some woman just spent $40 on this envelope.
And it's like junk mail.
Yeah, something I'm not even going to use.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Yep.
Okay, so besides, your mom funding the Postal Service, what's next on our docket today? So, I came across this article. Actually, you might have sent this to me, but it was basically talking about how ICOs retain centralized control. They are constantly breaking their promises, and how a lot of them just haven't lived up to what they stated that they were going to do.
Right.
Well, first of all, I mean, have you in the past invested in any ICOs?
To be honest, I don't think I have. Just because I was always I was kind of shying away from locking up my funds. Like, I wanted to be as liquid as possible. So I was never really willing to jump in and say, yeah, you can take my, Ethereum for the next 6 months. So I don't think I ever did.
Well, before it came down that U.S. investors couldn't, there were a few that I looked into, and I mean, very minor. Like, I might have put like $100 into 1 or 2 of them. And what's funny is reading this article, one of the ICOs they talk about is, according to the paper, Polybius, who raised $31 million through their ICO in June 2017, included in its white paper several claims that would lead us to expect certain features directly coded in tokens or other smart contracts. Basically, I'm just pointing out that Polybius is one of the ones mentioned as not living up to its expectations. That's the one of the ones I actually wrote an article
That
about.
sounds familiar. Nice.
It's funny. But yeah, this was apparently Polybius was looking at creating their own cryptocurrency bank and actually buying. They were looking at whether they would create their own or they would just buy an already established bank and kind of build off that one.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just funny.
Kind of brought up. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I'll say just on that same topic. Pretty sure we mentioned that Litecoin actually bought a stake in a bank last week.
Yeah, that was like last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the
Well,
way
we didn't
to
have
do
our
it.
podcast last week, so we didn't announce it. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Litecoin was doing that, which was, I guess it was the Litecoin Foundation, since no one technically owns Litecoin. It was like the nonprofit or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the smart move, right? Like, partner up instead of try and replace.
Exactly. So did you have any other thoughts on this whole ICO? I feel like the ICO market has kind of come into a crash, and it's changing, the way that they're going about things.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the dot-com era. And I was pretty young during that time, so I can't speak from like an investment perspective, but um, it sounds very much like all the startups that popped up during that time, and they basically slapped a .com on their name, and I'm going to sell Kit Kat bars online. You're like, fuck out of here. So you're always going to have like this, mashup of good projects and bad projects, and there's going to be that bubble. So for me, ICOs are just like that. There's going to be good ones and bad ones.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, if you look at the statement from the Binance CEO, he said that raising money through ICOs is 100 times easier, at least 100 times easier than through traditional VCs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess if it's an easier way to raise money, it's here to stay. But I'm sure, with this talk, which will actually lead into here, where cryptocurrency team in general was on the Hill the other day with Congress, there's going to be some regulation coming out with it, and will only improve it.
Well, I think for me, kind of the takeaway here is, so while a lot of ICOs aren't going to last, I think what I want to underscore is the change in like a paradigm shift, so to speak, of like how we invest in something. I think the ICO method, this like global ability to invest in a project, is a new thing. You know what I mean? Like it's always been kind of siloed in like you have to be a U.S. accredited investor, blah blah blah. But now there's way less of a barrier to invest in a project.
Well,
So that's interesting.
Well, yeah, totally. And the aspect of it that I like is that, if you have a startup or an idea, trying to pitch to a VC has become harder and harder and harder over the years. Mm-hmm. And, it helps you a lot if you know somebody or you already have name recognition to do something like that. When it comes to ICOs like this, you can get that funding from, lower end investors, but obviously quantity, mass quantity of them. And hopefully it's like Kickstarter. I mean, really is what it is. It's like Kickstarter except utilizing the blockchain and cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Right.
So
exactly. And I'm trying to think, is Kickstarter, isn't there some kind of regulation around who can invest? I'm not sure if that's a global thing or not.
I've actually never paid into any project on Kickstarter myself.
Yeah, it's been so long. I've used it a couple of times way back, but anyways, so yeah, 70% of ICOs are garbage apparently. But
I mean, that's easy to, if you go, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, that dead coins link that shows you all the coins that are dead that were started and stuff. And, I guarantee you the majority of those are ICOs.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an easy way to raise money and then exit. Like, you stay anonymous, discontinue your email address, website. Suddenly you have 25 mil in the bank.
It's funny though. I mean, that's proof right there though of how regulations do work. Really, if you think about it, because as U.S. investors, we're limited where we can invest in ICOs like this, and you can look at it and say, "Damn, I wish I was in another country so I could do this." But then if you look at these statistics, it's 70% of ICOs have failed. That's a good thing. So, it's not like regulations are bad. We've talked about this numerous times on our old podcasts and stuff. Regulations are not bad. They're bad if they're used in inappropriate ways, but if they're done correctly, they can, they can be very helpful.
Yeah, it's funny. There's one of the members that testified on Congress the other day on behalf of cryptocurrencies, Amber Balday. She was the former blockchain lead for JP Morgan. I think it's on her Twitter profile where it says, every tool can be used as a weapon if you hold it in the right way. So it's kind of like that.
True.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to that regulation thing. They can help out a lot, but if you use it in the wrong way, you can stifle that innovation. What makes it a good innovation?
Yeah, she's the CEO of Clover.io.
Right. Yeah,
as well.
she left JP Morgan to start up that startup.
Yeah, I was actually looking at it. Apparently, it's I don't know all the details of it, but it looks like you can build like dApps and stuff like that using their platform. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, one project I did want to bring up because they just launched after 3 years after their ICO and 2 years after testing, which is insane. Augur. So it's a project on the Ethereum blockchain. And basically, without going too deep, because I would need to do some more research about all the nooks and crannies, but it's essentially this open protocol for creating your own prediction or forecasting market. So let's say you wanted to bet on who the next president is going to be. Well, you could go on here and basically open up your own market and say, I think so-and-so is going to be the next president. And people can use their Ethereum to access it. Then they can purchase these RET tokens, which basically means you have skin in the game, and then bet on that market. Now, Augur is very explicit in saying that they aren't creating the markets. They aren't doing anything except for creating this open protocol. So they're, alleviating any responsibility for local laws, regulations, whatever. So anyways, they just launched, I think, a couple of days ago. And I think so far it's been $1 million or so in bets. So it's one of these projects that's promised on what they said they would do.
Yeah, and their first payout was like $20,000 worth in Ether, and most of them came from the World Cup final between France and Croatia, which is cool. They said next week should be much bigger because they've got 1,963 Ether currently in open interest, so are currently in the predictions market.
Yeah, I think Augur's going to be huge.
It tripled since Monday.
Yeah. It's just so
amount.
refreshing to see this project after 3 years finally come to life and be like, and we did it.
Well, so that's proof right there that, some ICOs do work.
Yeah, exactly. 30% of them.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That's awesome. That's very exciting. Very exciting. We kind of already touched on it, but about Congress, but kind of along the same lines there. So, do you see the news that former Trump advisor Steve Bannon is looking into creating his own utility tokens?
I saw something about that. What's the end goal?
Well, so he wants it for the populist movement that's worldwide, not just, going on in certain countries right now. And the whole thing is like he's against unions like the European Union and the centralization of all these countries within one and governed under one entity. So his goal is that something like this would allow you to resist those unions like that and those establishments because, my personal opinion on all this is that, like the European Union, it's got good theories that we're a bunch of countries and we're all going to work together and we're going to open up our borders so that if you have a passport in one country, you can travel between them, no problem, stuff like that. But on the flip side, different countries have different cultures. Different countries have different, communities and different batches of people and stuff like that. It's just like, what works in one country doesn't necessarily work in another country. So I think that's what the whole populist movement, it really resembles is that, it's people coming together within their own country, within their own, cultures and stuff to, prolong that and not becoming just this one homogenous world per se. So that's really his goal in what I've read. They're working on the tokens, but one of the lines is that, he says 90% of ICOs have been a disaster is one thing, but he says we are working on some tokens now, utility tokens, potentially for the populist movement on a worldwide basis, but they have to be quality. So at least his head's right there that, we don't want to put out some shit just for putting something out.
Right. Yeah, I would be curious to see and dig in a little bit more. Like, is it going to be like an ERC-20? Is it going to be like his own blockchain?
Yeah, I don't know all of those details. That's there. A lot of that wasn't really reported.
Yeah.
But it just says that it did say that he would be distributing them via his private investment firm. So it's not going to be like a normal ICO or anything like that. I mean, especially after you say that they fail.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just interesting. It's interesting that big players like that, whether you like them or not, are getting into the market and has the potential to. It's just a good thing for us as investors, in my opinion.
It's going to be a really interesting situation to see play out.
Yeah.
Go
So that's kind of the news, unless you have anything else you want to cover there with any of the articles.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, at least if you're stateside, that there were some indictments of 12 Russia-linked hackers.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this one.
With their alleged involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections. And of course, Bitcoin is brought up because they apparently used Bitcoin to facilitate some of those transactions. But what really grabbed me, and it was kind of a sentiment change from what we've historically seen from Congress. So basically, right at the very end of this hearing, the quote was from Conaway: "As long as the stupid criminals keep using Bitcoin, it'll be great." Which is kind of struck me. It was kind of odd because historically it's always been, well, Bitcoin's anonymous. Like, criminals are going to use it so they can't be traced, blah, blah, blah. And here we have this guy saying, please keep using it so we can trace you.
Yeah, because that's how they were found, through the public ledger, and through how the money moved. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that clarity now. It's like, finally, you're telling the truth.
Yeah, that's hilarious, because if you watch Banking on Bitcoin on Netflix and stuff, they talk about Silk Road and talk about all those payments and how it's this bad thing, it's this anonymous currency and stuff, but now they're finding it out it actually is helpful in finding these criminals. So
yeah, it's just the tide is turning, and it's just every day we see more and more of these traditional institutions climbing on board.
That almost makes me feel like, though, if they're a hacker, like
they should be smart enough to not use them.
They knew that they were leaving this trail, because they could have converted like Monero or something like that. Like, that's completely anonymous.
Like they sign up on Coinbase, verify their identity.
KYC, they got their picture, had their passport.
Yeah, it's like, you deserve to get caught.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. So, jumping into winners and losers. So, on that topic there, my winner of the week is going to be Bitcoin. And with all this news that's been coming out from Blackrock, from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, etc., Congress, winner's Bitcoin for going back over the 7K mark and staying there. And hopefully we will be moving past the 8K mark soon. So hopefully the bull market has started, our bull run. My loser is what we just discussed right there, the Russian hackers. Don't put your address on the internet when you're doing something illegal like that. It's like they set up their own GPS directly to where they were.
Exactly, just neon signs.
Right here, wacky inflatable arm. Yeah. So what about yours, Billy? What's your winner and loser?
For the winner, I gotta say Augur for pulling through. There are quality projects out there, but it's not all a scam. And it's a cool project. I think it's going to be big, because who doesn't, everyone likes to bet. Even if it's a friendly wager, people always bet with each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be a pretty big one.
Speaking of betting, we'll have a Funfair CEO on Monday for our podcast. Just to throw it out there.
That's right.
And your loser?
My loser is going to be the 5 supposed experts saying that Bitcoin wasn't going to climb ever again. The bubble had
20 minutes later, it did.
Yeah, it was so poetic. Poetic justice.
That's hilarious. So those are our winners and losers and what we are covering this week. Again, I want to announce that on Monday we will be having Funfair CEO Jez Sand on our podcast. Pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. They actually just, and we'll talk about this more on next week's podcast, but they just signed on their first gaming partner.
Yeah.
So, that's exciting. The other announcement that we would like to make is that we have had a new team member join our team. Actually, 2 new team members. So we brought on a team member named Matthew, who is going to be helping us with some community relations and reaching out for some advertisement possibilities at CryptoFizz. And then we just brought on a chief marketing officer. So we now have Brian, who goes by Mad Digits in our Discord. He has become the chief marketing officer, so he'll be handling all social media operations and all that jazz for CryptoFizz.
We growing.
Yeah, growing big time. And actually, we kind of took on some different titles and segmented different parts of our business as well, which I guess we can announce here on the podcast. So, Billy, what are you going to be doing?
I am going to focus on being the chief doodler, focusing on, our branding efforts, how we look in the market, and also focusing a lot on content creation as well, doing a lot of deep dives on these projects like Augur and, various startups that people may or may not be aware of, and, doing all the research so you don't have to. That's going to be a big focus moving forward.
So to wrap those into legitimate corporate titles, you're going to be our editor-in-chief and then also the kind of the art director as of right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Actually, on that topic, before I jump into mine real fast and close this out, is our new some big things you've done over the last week. So we've got a new logo. We have a new emoticon in our Discord. We've revamped our entire social media presence.
Yeah, I'm curious what the community thinks, whether it's total shit or if it's baller. I definitely want to hear about it.
Oh, it's baller.
If it's fizzing, throw up our fizzy emoticon in Discord. I'm super proud of the work that we've done. Been a long time coming. And we'll have some swag coming shortly, I promise.
Yeah, we'll be having some merch. That should be cool. And then just to kind of wrap it up, I've kind of taken on the role of, in corporate lingo, chief technology officer. So I'm going to be handling a lot of the tech back-end stuff for us. And then also looking at CryptoFizz X type stuff, where we'll be looking at creating some of our own software, some of our own add-ons, plugins, things like that to help people out in the community. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so hopefully with our new kind of segments and roles, we'll be able to progress further in those areas when we don't have to focus in so many different places individually. So
Are you suggesting we're going to have our own fizzy token?
And maybe at some point, got to do some research on that and talk with some other experts. But yeah, possibly might have a fizzy coming out at some point. So that's it for our podcast today. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for all the support we've gotten in our Discord and new followers that we've gotten along the way. Be sure to check out our podcast next week with Funfair CEO Jez Sand. Really looking forward to it. And Billy, you can tell our audience goodbye.
Yeah, man. Super pumped for everything moving forward, especially Monday's interview. And I look forward to talking to you guys in Discord. Could be about sports, could be about crypto. Don't matter. Holler at us.
Later, peeps.
Guys.
Later.